In December 1945, near the limestone cliffs of Jabal al-Tarif in Egypt, a camel driver named Muhammad Ali al-Saman struck a heavy red clay jar buried beside an ancient Coptic tomb. Inside lay 12 leather-bound papyrus codices containing 52 distinct texts written in Coptic. These manuscripts had been hidden in the late 4th century, likely by monks following Bishop Athanasius of Alexandria's Easter letter demanding the purging of heretical books. For 1600 years, the Orthodox Church maintained a monopoly on early Christian history. Heresiologists like Irenaeus of Lyons had written vast treatises denouncing hidden sects known as Gnostikoi, meaning the knowing ones, but their testimonies came from bitter enemies. The Nag Hammadi discovery did something unprecedented. It allowed the dead to speak in their own voices, revealing a radical, sophisticated countervision of existence that proclaimed the material universe was not created by the true God, but by an ignorant cosmic architect. The secret book of John presents a revelation delivered by the resurrected Christ to the Apostle John. Above all created realities sits the One, described as an illimitable light, pure and unpolluted, greater than any God. From this infinite source flow divine emanations called aeons, forming the realm of spiritual perfection called the pleroma, meaning the fullness. At its fringe sat an aeon named Sophia, meaning wisdom. Desiring to create without permission, Sophia produced a grotesque blind entity with the face of a lion and the body of a serpent. She cast this creature into darkness, naming him Yaldabaoth, also called Saklas, meaning the fool, and Samael, meaning the blind god. Yaldabaoth stole divine power from Sophia and constructed the material universe along with demonic planetary rulers called archons. Gazing across his crude creation, he declared himself a jealous god, an outburst of tragic cosmic ignorance rather than divine proclamation. Yaldabaoth and his archons fashioned the physical body of Adam from mortal clay, yet their creation lay limp and motionless. Lacking genuine divine spark, they could not animate a soul. Sophia intervened, causing Yaldabaoth to unknowingly blow his stolen divine power into Adam's nostrils. Adam leapt to his feet, glowing with inner light that made him instantly superior to the archons who built him. Terrified, they dragged Adam into the densest layers of physical matter, binding his divine light inside a body governed by instinct and amnesia. To help Adam remember his origins, Sophia sent her daughter Zoe, the personification of life, embodied in Eve. Orthodox Genesis paints Eve as a secondary creation who succumbs to sin. Gnostic texts reveal her as an enlightened spiritual awakening code. In the testimony of truth, the serpent becomes the heroic whistleblower who reveals that eating from the tree of knowledge grants critical thinking, breaking the demiurge's hypnotic spell over human consciousness. The reality of the archons details how these planetary rulers act as cosmic wardens, feeding on low-frequency human emotions, including fear, anxiety, tribal hatred, and mindless craving. The text introduces Norea, daughter of Eve, as an unyielding figure of resistance. When the archons assemble to assault her, she cries out to the higher pleroma. The archangel Elaleth descends, revealing that archontic authority is a temporary illusion. They can rule over physical flesh and human ego, but possess zero power over the immortal spiritual spark called pneuma. The Gospel of Truth diagnoses the fundamental human illness as ignorance of the Father, which produced anguish and terror growing dense like fog. Salvation does not consist of pleasing an angry judge, but of waking from a bad dream. The concept of our great power speaks directly to the reader, asking why humanity spends all its time surviving inside the illusion while never inquiring who they actually are or where consciousness originates. The tripartite tractate classifies humanity into 3 operational mindsets. First are the hilics, completely absorbed in physical sensation, consumerism, and biological survival, believing material reality is all that exists. Second are the psychics, who sense a realm beyond matter but remain bound to external dogmas, rigid religious rules, and fear-based devotion. Third are the pneumatics, possessing operational gnosis, directly experiencing their connection to the unnameable source of light. The Gospel of Philip presents a radical concept regarding spiritual identity, stating that whoever sees Christ becomes Christ, and that person is no longer merely a Christian, but a Christ. Mainstream orthodoxy insists on eternal separation between worshipper and deity. The Gospel of Philip shatters this hierarchy entirely. Christ is not a master to be idolized, but a template of awakened divine humanity to be realized from within. The Gospel of Thomas reinforces this through 114 paradoxical sayings, declaring the kingdom of heaven exists inside and outside simultaneously. The first apocalypse of James contains explicit instructions Jesus gave his brother James regarding what happens when the soul leaves its physical form. Archontic gatekeepers guarding planetary spheres demand identification. An awakened soul declares its divine origins, stating it comes from the pre-existent Father, proving it is no longer under the demiurge's spell. The archons, lacking power over an awakened mind, are forced to step aside, allowing the soul to ascend back to the pleroma. A soul lacking this knowledge gets recycled back into another physical body, reincarnated into another lifetime of suffering and forgetfulness. The treatise on the resurrection rejects the traditional idea of physical graves opening at the end of time. Resurrection is defined as an immediate shift in consciousness while still alive. The Apocalypse of Peter describes Peter witnessing two figures at the crucifixion, one suffering physically and another standing above it, radiant and laughing, demonstrating that lower rulers can destroy physical matter but cannot touch the immortal spirit. One of the most striking aspects of the Nag Hammadi texts is their restoration of the divine feminine, systematically purged from orthodox canons. In three forms of first thought, a magnificent voice speaks as Barbelo, the first thought of the unknowable one, declaring she is the invisible movement dwelling within everyone. She proclaims descending into the lower world in three distinct forms to awaken trapped souls, stating she put on Jesus and carried him down to the place of execution. Christ becomes an earthly garment worn by the supreme divine feminine thought of the source. The thunder, perfect mind, presents a divine feminine voice, speaking in radical paradoxical statements, claiming to be simultaneously the first and the last, the honored and the scorned, the harlot and the holy one. By claiming both sides of every human dichotomy, this text demonstrates that the divine source transcends all human labels, moral categories, and ideological boundaries, collapsing every dualism humanity has constructed throughout its entire history. The Gospel of Judas, discovered in Egypt in the late 1970s and published in 2006, presents a radical perspective on the ultimate biblical villain. Jesus laughs openly at the 12 disciples because they unknowingly pray to Yaldabaoth. Only Judas Iscariot understands where Jesus truly originates. Jesus pulls Judas aside, revealing that Judas will sacrifice the man that clothes him, meaning the physical body, so that Christ can shed his fleshly skin and return to the pleroma. The betrayal was not malice, but a planned, necessary liberation. The Gospel of Mary, discovered in Cairo in 1896, positions Mary Magdalene as the primary leader of the early spiritual movement. When Peter challenges whether Jesus truly spoke privately with a woman, the disciple Levi defends her, stating the Savior made her worthy. In the Gospel of Mary, salvation comes through overcoming 7 internal archontic distortions, including ignorance, craving, jealousy, and wrath through disciplined self-knowledge. These texts were hunted down, labeled heresy, and burned because they were destabilizing to institutional power. If the divine exists inside every person, No imperial church hierarchy is needed to mediate salvation. If the true enemy is ignorance rather than inherent moral evil, populations cannot be controlled through eternal guilt or fear of hellfire. If humanity consists of immortal sparks of pure divine light, temporarily experiencing physical reality, rulers relying on fear, scarcity, and violence lose their grip entirely. The Nag Hammadi Library is not a collection of antique dogmas to be blindly believed. It is a mirror held up to the human soul, reminding us that behind our anxieties, physical limitations, and social identities lies a luminous essence that never originated in the mud. As the secret book of John whispers across 1600 years of silence, arise and remember that it is you who have heard, and follow your route back to the fullness from which you came.